Welcome to Q-MindBody. My name is Darren Main, and in this podcast, we talk about gay wellness and spirituality and self-inquiry and all sorts of ways we can live better lives. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about ayahuasca journeys and how the use of hallucinogens in general, but specifically ayahuasca and the ceremonies associated with it, could help us to go deeper into our inner journey. And I am bringing in Anu Brandt, who is, I want to get this right, transformational wellness practitioner. I just call him a friend, but transformational wellness practitioner who's had some really beautiful experiences with ayahuasca journeys. And his website, should you want to contact him, is soulunique.com. I will put links to all of his stuff in the show notes. Also, in the show notes, I will put a link to my website and other ways you can get involved and any resources associated with this episode. I also want to give a shout out to the Gay Wellness website that we partner with, where we have profiles on all different kinds of healers that you can connect with in your area and around the world. And we have a number of online groups, such as a Facebook group, occasional online yoga classes, just so gay men can connect and be more mindful together. With that, I'm going to bring in Peter, and we're going to talk about ayahuasca. Peter or Anu, which would you prefer I call you? I've just met you as Peter, so I'll probably dead name you the whole time.
I answer to both, but usually when I'm doing this work, I go by Anu in my circles. Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ben Kenobi, take your pick. So my Jedi friend, it's so good to see you. We have known each other for many years, and I have seen sometimes up close, sometimes from a distance, your journey unfolding. And I'm wondering if you could just tell people a little bit about sort of who you are and how you find yourself having this conversation with me today.
All right, Darren, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And I actually need to look into that gay wellness site that you were talking about. I've been thinking about listing myself on there.
Oh, it's fantastic. And it would be a perfect place for you to connect with other healers and also reach out to people who might be interested in your work. I highly recommend it.
Great. Well, I've been thinking about doing that. So that is the tip that I need to move forward. But anyway, to answer your question, I would say I've been on a rather spiritual journey, what I would call a quiet spiritual journey, sort of in the background since I was a child. I can remember being probably around age 5 and just having these big lofty thoughts about, well, where was I before I was born? And why am I here? And where do I go after I die? And having conversations with what I think I perceived to be, God or whatever you want to call that. And probably very likely having out-of-body experiences at the time, which was a pretty regular thing for me. I used to think I could fly as a result of those out-of-body experiences. And so that continued through my life, even from those early years. I was brought up in the Christian church as a Methodist, but I really just kind of did it by rote because it was expected of me by my family. And it was never really invasive or problematic. I didn't have any scary or dark experiences with it like some people did when they were brought up in a religious household. So I'm grateful for that. But after high school, I pretty much never went back to quote unquote church, although I did continue my own spiritual pursuits and explorations for a long time. And so now I'm in my 50s, and I came up with the term to call myself a transformational wellness practitioner. So it doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual work necessarily that you're doing with me. I think a lot of people have different connotations or different meanings for what the word spiritual means to them. And I've often tried to come up with a different term that would touch on the same idea. But I always come back to spiritual because that's sort of the buzzword. To me, it simply means uh, acknowledging our existence as perhaps a multidimensional being that is not just confined to our physical bodies in the physical world. And that, yes, we were somewhere else in a different state, perhaps a different dimension before we were born into these bodies. And we will go somewhere else afterwards when we die. And in between those two occurrences, those two profound occurrences in our existence, we are always still connected with that other dimension.
Let me ask you a question, and I have an opinion on this, but I'm very interested in yours. I would not be the first person to note that throughout history, um, LGBTQ, rainbow spectrum people um, tended to be the priests or the rabbis or the shamans, the sort of spiritual leaders in a tribe or in a community. Not always, but frequently. It was almost like nature sort of built us into the puzzle. Is like some people are over here to procreate, and some people are here to maybe not take those family responsibilities and it, think deeper thoughts and create beautiful things. And um, obviously, modern science has given us on the rainbow spectrum the ability to procreate, and people who are on the straight side of the scale the ability not to if they choose not to. But I'm wondering your leanings toward spirituality, toward mysticism, toward ceremonial things. I'm wondering, have you ever associated that with your sexual orientation? Or do you see those things as largely separate?
I definitely don't see them separate, but I do see, I would say, in my overall vision and based on my experiences, both with ayahuasca and other modalities, explorations, studies, meditations, research, I would say that I think you could say that it's very possible that all souls, if we consider what I believe to be the reality of reincarnation, um, which has many different ways of looking at it. But if we consider that reincarnation as a fact, that we all keep coming back for more and more lives, that at some point in our journey, we all have the experience of coming into what we now call the LGBTQ plus community. And it is reflective of the fact that when we all came forth from what I call source, the original source, we all came forth with the intent to have our own unique experience and to sort of report back to source, you could say, on our unique experience that is unlike any other experience of any other individual point of consciousness in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe that from that perspective, we all actually desire to have the experience of being a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and that it is a profound and beautiful experience that has many lessons, just as any life path has many lessons. It has its challenges as well, just like any life path, but it's part of manifesting in physical form within our co-created existence. And just to touch on what you touched on about indigenous communities and tribal communities, and yes, there are many communities that originally perceived people from the LGBTQ community to be healers and shamans, seers, way showers because they believed that these people came in with a unique perspective on the universe and on existence that was valuable, that they, in some cases, were very good sort of mediators among men and women and other ways people identified themselves in their communities. My friend Christian de la Huerta is a
I love
wonderful
Christian.
author. Yeah, he's a wonderful author and teacher, and he's written a book called Coming Out Spiritually that talks about this and how LGBTQ plus people were revered in those communities, and I think in some communities still are today.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to our focus of this conversation, which is ayahuasca journeys. Uh, so, just quickly, because I want to get into the fun part, like ayahuasca is a big long word. Some people may have heard it, others maybe not, or they think they know something about it. Just
Mhm.
briefly, like what is it, and where does it come from, and sort of the you know high up view looking down. What exactly is it, and then we can get into like what the experience is and why it might be helpful for people.
Okay, yeah. So, like many other psychedelics that come from the natural world, which some of us call entheogens, they can also be called plant medicine. I believe that they have been put on the planet for a reason and to give us the opportunity for a glimpse into those other dimensions to our existence as spiritual, non physical beings. So, ayahuasca was something that was, you could say, discovered, or it was the indigenous people were guided to create it. It is the combination of two different plants, a vine, which is the Banisteriopsis caapi vine, and that is the vine, or that is the plant that holds the name ayahuasca, the ayahuasca vine. And that name is also used as the name of the overall sacrament or psychedelic substance. The other plant is the chacruna, which is a leaf. And the vine is what's called an MAOI, which is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And that works in one way with the body. And the chacruna, the leaf, has the DMT in it, which has been called the God molecule. I'm not going to go into too much depth about what DMT is, but that's certainly an interesting subject. But the DMT is what allows what I believe to be sort of the opening of our innate channel that each of us has to experiencing ourselves as spiritual beings, to connect with what I would call the higher self, or you might call it the
Yeah.
overself, and to gain that broader perspective that is accessible
Yeah.
from doing these kinds of psychedelics. And I wanted to mention one thing. I don't consider them, ayahuasca or others, hallucinogens. To me, hallucinogen means or implies that it's somehow a fictional experience that the brain is making up. And I think
Mm.
there are some synthetic man made drugs that might create a hallucinogenic experience. But for me, I would say a psychedelic, an entheogen, or a plant medicine that comes from the natural world is actually giving us visions and experiences that are true in a certain way and can be perceived as and received as holding very important and profound messages and teachings for us when we're
Um,
willing to go in.
eh, I would like to build on that what you just said, but I'd also like to bring in another piece of sort of how ayahuasca is often framed, and that is it's framed as a ceremony
Mm-hmm.
or a journey, meaning like you're doing this with intention. And I would frame a different way to use a psychedelic, like me in high school. dropping acid or eating peyote. Um, I saw lots of pretty colors. I wouldn't say I had a particularly meaningful experience. Um, and I'm wondering what part, the ceremony part, that it's not just like, let's take this plant medicine and see what happens, that it's inside a container, a ceremonial container. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about what that might look like and why you think it's important, or maybe you don't think it's important.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful question. And I definitely agree and believe that it is absolutely important. So it's what we call in the world of psychedelics, set and setting, which I think is a term that was coined by Terence McKenna, who's famous for his work with psilocybin mushrooms, magic mushrooms. He also worked with some other psychedelics, but I think um, mushrooms was his main one. But yes, set and setting implies sort of the culture that you're in and how the culture perceives the work that you're doing with plant medicines or entheogens. It is your intention that you bring into the ceremony. It's the actual setting of the space that you're in. And uh, so if you're coming into a ceremony, you're doing it with respect. Um, so I believe, as do nearly everybody I've ever met who has worked with ayahuasca as well as with psilocybin, that there is actually a spirit of the plant, of the medicine that we are put in touch with when we ingest the medicine in a ceremonial, respectful, intentful way.
Mm.
Um, and so when we take these substances with sort of a sacred, you could say, a sacred intent in a setting that's designed to hold the experience in a sacred, loving way, um, that's what makes the difference between a profound, beautiful experience that might be full of messages and teachings and learning and love and kindness and connection with the other people in the circle, perhaps, or with your own guides, your own inner self, your higher self. Um, yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. A follow-up question. And and I would, you can take this in several parts. I would like to hear a little bit about your personal experience and how it's been. Obviously, it's something important to you and that has been transformative in your life. I'm wondering, A, could you say a little bit about that? And B, um, I would think, like, I teach yogic breath work, which has some similar, there's some crossover. It brings you into an altered state in which you can let go of things. You can, some people have visions and lots of things, but it's really, I think some people get really nervous about that. Um, but in all the years I've been facilitating these experiences, I've never seen two people have the same experience or have the same person do it multiple times and have the same experience twice. So it seems like there's a unique what you bring to it and what's ready to come out and so I'm wondering if you could speak to, like, what are the variety of experiences, and for people who might be fearful. Thank you, Nancy Reagan, for telling us all drugs are evil. Um, what what would you say to them about how they can, if they are curious? Not everybody will be, but if they're curious, like, how could they feel safe knowing that this is not a scary thing? This is a beautiful thing. It's an opening.
Mm.
So that's a multi-layered question. You can take it wherever you want.
Yeah, that's a good question. And you've touched on a lot of things. One, yeah, I work with breath work as well. And it is amazing to me how breath work actually gives us the opportunity to access these same states of altered or expanded consciousness or conscious awareness, very similar to the psychedelic state, which to me, when I first read that about breath work, I thought, oh, they must be making that up. They're exaggerating. But then I did breath work after that. And to my surprise, it was true that just by changing the pattern of our breathing, we have access to these expanded states of consciousness, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so the thing about breath work is if you do get to a place where you're not enjoying what is coming up in the experience, or maybe the visuals are somehow making you wary or hesitant, or maybe even a little bit fearful, then you can slow down the path of breathing, of course, as you know, and come back to your normal state of being with an entheogen or a plant medicine, which is not a drug. I want to make a difference between a drug and a plant medicine or an entheogen, but we can get into that later.
What are you using to differentiate the fact that it was created by nature rather than in a lab, or
Yeah, basically.
or is there some other criteria?
That's basically it. I mean, to me, and maybe this isn't technically or biologically or scientifically correct, but to me, a drug is a synthetic substance, and a plant medicine is a plant medicine. We're just simply ingesting something that comes from the earth. So, and also, I think the term drug has a lot of potentially bad connotations. Thank you, Nancy Reagan and others. Which is true in some cases. You know, there are drugs like meth or cocaine or whatever it might be that have the great potential to do harm. And I can absolutely say that ayahuasca is not one of those. And I don't believe mushrooms are either. But most of my experiences with ayahuasca, and it's not addictive. Its only intent is good. But
I was just going to say, just to play, I totally agree with you, first of all, but just to play devil's advocate, poison oak comes from the earth. I don't want to roll around naked in it, though.
Yeah, exactly. But I also wouldn't call it a drug. Yeah, it doesn't mean that everything that's coming from the earth, that if you were to ingest it, is necessarily good for you. Absolutely. But to go back to your question about being a little bit fearful or wary of what comes up in this case, an ayahuasca ceremony, yes, there is. I would say there's reason to potentially have those feelings, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Having an ayahuasca journey can be a very challenging experience. And that's why it's so important that it's done by somebody who's very experienced and has a relationship with the sacrament, or sometimes we call it the medicine. It's done in a way of reverence and respect and sacredness, if you will. And it's held very safely and securely so that the people who are doing it feel that they can trust the experience, they can trust the facilitator, and that if something scary or something that makes them uncomfortable comes up, that they have the tools within themselves that the facilitator helps with, as well as the confidence in the setting that they're in and how the ceremony is held, that they can make it through. But just like in life, a lot of times, we don't learn much and we don't evolve much by having our lives be comfortable, easy, sort of feathered nests. It's the challenging experiences that make us learn and evolve and move into new ways of being. And there's great power in that state of discomfort. So go ahead.
I'm wondering if you could, I know every experience is unique, but I'm wondering if you could say like if I'm talking about breath work, I can say these are the things that could come up for you. This is what you're likely to start to feel in your body. This is how we're going to start, and then I'll guide you through. And these are some of the practices we're going to do as we go along. And you may feel some tingling in your body, and you may have memories or sounds or colors, or not everybody has all of those experiences, and not everybody has. Some people have none of those, but it's just, I think, for people who are concerned, like, okay, somebody's going to give me some plant medicine and magic things are going to happen, and it's going to be really hard. And okay, now I'm terrified. Like, what would a standard ceremony sort of look like for the average person so that people have a sense for what they're getting themselves into?
Yeah, really good question. So I also want to add that, yes, there are challenging parts, but there are also just incredible, beautiful, blissful states of sort of, it could be feeling one with the universe, or feeling like every cell in your body filled with love and light and acceptance. And that's what makes the challenging stuff so worth it.
Yeah,
That there are, it also includes these experiences again of love and light and bliss that are things that I have never experienced in any other modality, or just in my waking life.
yeah,
So yes, you're right. Every experience is always 100% different. I've never had two ayahuasca journeys that are the same. But I can say that most of the time it's a combination of the two. There's some challenging stuff. Oftentimes the challenging stuff comes up in the beginning, but one of the sort of caveats is that what usually makes it challenging for people is that uh, they have resistance to what's coming up. So often, what Mother Ayahuasca, the spirit of ayahuasca, as we call her, Madrecita or Mamacita, is often bringing up are things that are ready to be healed. Usually, people come into these ceremonies with the intent of healing something in their lives, of gaining a new perspectives on their lives or on themselves, sort of getting
yeah,
answers about what it's all about. Um, and the way Mamacita, Madrecita facilitates that is by initially showing you what's in the way of your thriving, or what's in the way of your healing. And
yeah,
sometimes, again, it can be, that's where the challenges come up.
yeah,
But again, I truly believe and have experienced that Madrecita, or the spirit of this medicine, does not have ill intent for us. It's not like she's saying, okay, I'm going to give you this challenging, fearful experience. It's our
just a toy
resistance.
with you, just to
Right.
mess with you.
Yeah. Well, it's not to mess with us. It's
Yeah,
our resistance to what's coming up,
yeah,
because it might be a little discomfort or uncomfortable.
yeah.
It's our
Well,
resistance that makes it so different or
yeah.
difficult. And that's
I'm
why,
wondering.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm wondering, since this is Q-MindBody and it's our audience is gay men who want to heal and do some inner work.
Hmm.
Um, there are a lot of common themes or common threads of baggage that many gay men share, not all, but like internalized homophobia, or we're good at having a lot of hookup sex, not so good at intimacy. I think that there's things like that are coming from some deep internal wounding that can be hard to get at, that many gay men have struggled with for years. They come out and they think, okay, it's all great, rainbow flags, and then uh, and then they realize that they're stuck in their relationships or whatever. And I'm wondering how you think an ayahuasca ceremony or journey could be helpful for someone who's feeling stuck on their gay coming out path.
Hmm. Um, oh, so many ways. But the main one, absolutely, I would say, is helping me to see my own internalized homophobia, and um, that every soul is equal, is worthy, regardless of their sexuality. I mean, it's as
Mm,
basic as that. I've never had any kind of experience, and I've never heard of any experience with any of my participants in my ceremonies, many of which have been gay men or lesbians or transgender people, where 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 she would show you that, yes, you should be homophobic or you should be wary of what's going on. It's exactly the opposite. It's showing us self-love and self-acceptance, and that essentially my experience actually has been that she showed me and really proved to me that as a soul, all of us are genderless. That from our original point of what we could call conception as a soul, there is no gender. It's only when we start manifesting or incarnating into worlds, the physical world, that we start taking on one gender or another. And then I do believe that people that are coming in transgender ways, and the different ways that that shows up, are actually beings that have lived many, many, many lives as men, many, many, many lives as women, many, many lives as maybe gay or lesbian. And now they're coming through in another way to help to have that experience, not only for themselves, but to be a teacher of love and acceptance and connection for everyone whose lives they touch. And
Yeah.
it's just so incredible that I think that's happening right now in such a big way in our world. And there's a lot of people fighting against it, which makes sense because people are afraid of what's new and what's different. And those
Yeah.
souls that are coming through with that just being such a core part of their being are so powerful and so inspiring to me.
Yeah. I think when you've been hiding in the dark for a very long time, the light initially hurts your eyes when you come in contact with it.
Hmm.
And so we react as if the light is a bad thing
Yeah.
when really it's not. And I think there's a reason great beings like Jesus and Martin Luther King were crucified. It's because
Hmm.
the light hurt. For some people, they weren't ready to see. Um, so, Anu, um, if people were curious about your work, both with ayahuasca and beyond, how would they get in touch with you? How might they work with you? I will put links to everything in the show notes, but just so people listening or watching on YouTube can get a sense for how they could connect with you more. I'm wondering if you could speak to that briefly.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm absolutely so passionate about bringing this work to the LGBTQ plus communities, and the overall community. And it's my goal to offer this work more and more to these communities and our sort of umbrella community. So yeah, my website, soul, SOUL, unique.com. There's a contact page on there, and I encourage anybody who is interested in this work and would like to know more to check out my website. Send me a note via my website. I do offer a free consultation. I'm happy to talk with anybody about this work and my other work. I'm also a energy healing master, and I offer breath work. I offer integration counseling for people who have already done psychedelic journeys, especially with ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And of course, I also offer ayahuasca journeys.
Oh, amazing. And I want to give a shout out to your Facebook page because you post the best quotes. I can't tell you. I keep a file of quotes that I see online, like that I could use in a class or that inspire me for my meditations. And virtually everything you post, I'm like, I'm going to clip that. Goes
Oh,
right into
thank
my
you.
digital notebook.
Thank you so
um,
much.
If you enjoyed this episode and this conversation, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. If you have comments or questions, you're welcome to post them in the comments section, and we will be checking them out. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover or a guest you'd like me to have on to talk about anything about gay wellness and spirituality, let me know, because I'm always looking for good ideas and inspirational people like Anu to chat with. Um, and you can get more information about my work and join our Facebook group in the show notes as well. So join the Q-MindBody Facebook group. I post a lot of additional stuff there as well. Um, Anu Peter Brandt, his website is soulunique.com, and he is a transformational and wellness practitioner. And I can't say enough, if nothing else, you should go see a fun queer musical with him. We did that recently, and we've sort of been talking about how we've been singing show tunes, Indigo Girls themed show tunes in the car when no one's listening. Or at least me, it's when no one's listening.
I'm still listening to that music. I love it.
It was so good. And we'll do a shout out. It's called Glitter and Doom. It's all Indigo Girls music that's sort of been reformatted as a musical with these two cute gay boys falling in love. And it's pretty magical.
Yeah,
So,
I'm grateful for you introducing me to that.
Yeah, we got to find another movie to go see.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, everybody. We will see you in the next episode.